All right, so let's dive into something that I think is giving a lot of people nightmares these days.
Yeah.
It's synthetic identity theft. And, we all know how regular ID theft works. So it nabs your info, goes on a shopping spree. Not fun, but at least you're like, okay, I know who to blame. Synthetic ID theft, way sneakier.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking criminals, like creating entire new people, like out of bits and pieces of real and fake data. And get this, Deloitte is predicting this could cost us like a jaw-dropping $23 billion by
Yeah.
2030.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
It is a rapidly growing problem, and it really preys on the fact that our systems aren't really designed to catch this kind of thing.
okay, so walk me through this. How does someone just invent a whole person? I mean, wouldn't any application for like credit alone, anything, just get flagged immediately?
Well, it's not about instant gratification. These scammers are playing the long game. Sometimes over years, they might start with a real social security number, often stolen from a child, because their information is less likely to have been used yet. Think about it. No one's checking a 5-year-old's credit report.
Wow, that's disturbing.
Right.
But okay, so a kid's social security number alone, that doesn't give you a driver's license, a job history, all that stuff.
Exactly. So they start building. They might use a fake name, address, date of birth. Early credit applications will probably get denied, but that's actually part of the plan. Those denials create a credit file, a footprint for this fake person.
So it's like they're building a credit history from scratch, but for someone who doesn't exist. But wouldn't banks and credit reporting agencies notice that something's fishy?
Well, here's where it gets really clever. To make this phantom identity look more legit, they might get added as an authorized user to a real person's account. Maybe someone struggling financially is lured into this thinking they're helping someone out for a small fee, and suddenly this fake person has a legitimate credit card on their file, building up history.
So they're basically piggybacking on real people to make their fake person look more believable.
Precisely. And they're patient. They might make small purchases, even pay some bills on time. To really build up that credit score, it all seems perfectly normal until the bust out.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
What's the bust out?
This is where the scammer goes all in. They apply for as much credit as possible, loans, credit cards, you name it. And because they've spent years cultivating this seemingly squeaky clean credit history, they often get approved. They max everything out and disappear, leaving a trail of debt and chaos.
Oh, wow. So who ends up footing the bill? Is it the banks who got tricked, or could this even hurt the real people? Whose information got tangled up in this mess?
It can be both. Creditors are often left holding the bag, but real people can get caught in the crossfire too. Imagine finding out your social security number was used to create a whole other person. Who racked up mountains of debt in your name? Clearing that up can be a nightmare.
Okay, that's seriously scary stuff. So we've got these phantom identities, credit scores built on lies, a system that's struggling to keep up. But wait, I thought there were different types of synthetic ID theft.
You're right. There are subtle variations on this scheme. Sometimes it's a total fabrication like we've been discussing, a complete mix of real and fake data. Other times it's more about manipulating an existing identity. Someone might slightly tweak their own social security number or change a letter in their name to try and hide from bad credit history.
So it's like going undercover digitally,
Hmm.
but with potentially huge consequences.
Exactly. And while this type is often easier to detect because it's tied to a real person, both forms of synthetic ID theft are incredibly damaging.
All right, so before we all run for the hills and vow to never use a credit card again, what can we do to protect ourselves? Is it even possible to stay ahead of these scammers?
Well, you can't exactly opt out of the system, but you can make yourself a much less appealing target.
Okay, let's talk strategy. What concrete steps can we take today to make ourselves less vulnerable to these digital con artists?
Well, one of the most important things is to be incredibly careful with your social security number. Don't just hand it out to anyone who asks.
Yeah, okay, that's a good starting point. I think I've been guilty of giving that out without really thinking about it. Like when a store clerk asks for it. Why do they even need that?
Exactly. Always ask yourself, why do they need this information? Is it
Yeah.
absolutely essential? And if you do have to share it, make sure you understand how they're going to protect it. Are they just scribbling it down on a piece of paper? Or do they have secure digital systems in place?
So it's not about being paranoid. It's about being informed and taking control of our own data. What else can we do to kind of stay vigilant?
Regularly check your credit reports. And I mean from all three bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You're looking for any accounts or inquiries you don't recognize. Even small things can be a red flag.
Yeah, you hear that advice all the time. Check your credit report. But I think a lot of people are intimidated by it. They don't know what to look for or what to do if they see something suspicious.
You're right, it can be confusing, but it's worth taking the time to learn the basics. There are some great resources available online that can walk you through exactly what to look for and what steps to take if you spot something fishy.
So knowledge is power. We need to empower ourselves to understand our own financial information. What about credit freezes? Are those worth the hassle?
Absolutely. A credit freeze is basically a giant padlock on your credit file. It prevents anyone, including yourself, from opening new accounts without your express authorization.
So that means even if a scammer had all my information, they still couldn't open a credit card in my name.
Exactly, it's a huge deterrent. And while it can be a bit inconvenient if you need to apply for credit yourself, you can easily lift the freeze temporarily when needed.
Okay, I'm convinced credit freeze it is. But let's say despite all our best efforts, we still become victims of synthetic ID theft. What are the signs we should look out for?
It can be tricky because remember, they've been building this fake persona for years, so it might not show up on your radar right away. But keep an eye out for things like unexpected bills, debt collection notices for debts you don't recognize, or even difficulty getting approved for credit, even if you have a good credit score.
So basically any weirdness with your finances, even if it doesn't seem directly related to your identity, could be a sign that something's up?
Exactly. And if you do suspect you're a victim, the most important thing is to act quickly. Report the fraud to the Federal Trade Commission. They have a dedicated website, identitytheft.gov, where you can file a report online.
Got it. FTC step one. What else?
Next, contact the 3 credit bureaus to place a fraud alert or even better, a credit freeze on your accounts, and notify any financial institutions where you think fraud might have occurred, your bank credit card companies, any lenders you have accounts with.
So it's basically damage control mode, sound the alarm everywhere.
Exactly. You want to limit the damage as quickly as possible. And don't forget to file a police report as well. Some institutions might require that for processing any claims.
Okay. That's a lot to remember. But it sounds like early detection is key. The sooner you act, the better.
Absolutely. And even after you've taken all those steps, don't let your guard down. Ongoing account monitoring is crucial. Check your bank statements, credit card bills, and credit reports regularly to make sure nothing suspicious is slipping through the cracks.
So basically, eternal vigilance is the price of financial security in the digital age.
You could say that. But remember, you're not alone in this fight. Law enforcement agencies are constantly working to track down these criminals. And there are organizations like the Better Business Bureau that offer support and guidance to victims of fraud.
That's good to hear. It's easy to feel helpless when you're dealing with something as complex as synthetic ID theft. But knowing that there are people and resources out there to help can make a big difference. But, this whole thing has me thinking about the bigger picture. If these scammers are so good at creating fake people, wouldn't that make it super hard for law enforcement to catch them? I mean, how do you even track someone who doesn't exist?
That's a great point. And it brings us to one of the biggest challenges in combating this crime, the fact that our systems are struggling to keep up with the level of sophistication we're seeing.
So it's not just about individual victims. It's a systemic problem.
Absolutely. Law enforcement agencies are often dealing with fake identities spread across multiple jurisdictions, with very little in the way of a physical trail to follow. It's like chasing ghosts through the internet.
It's like technology is almost like a double agent in this whole synthetic ID theft saga.
Yeah.
It's helping the criminals, but it's also giving us new ways to fight back.
Yeah. It is a constant back and forth. On the one hand, you have the dark web, where criminals can buy stolen information, create fake documents, and even use AI to generate realistic photos and videos for these phantom identities. It's scary how easy it's become for them to kind of blend the real and the fake.
It's like the ultimate catfish, but with real-world consequences. But you said technology is also helping us fight back. How so?
Well, think of it this way. If criminals are using AI to commit crimes, we can use AI to catch them. Law enforcement agencies and credit bureaus are now using sophisticated algorithms to analyze massive amounts of data, looking for patterns and anomalies that might indicate synthetic ID fraud.
So it's like a digital detective, sifting through all that information to find the needles in the haystack.
Exactly. And it's not just about playing catch-up. We're seeing some really exciting developments in preventative technologies as well.
I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
One promising area is biometric authentication. Think fingerprint scanning, facial recognition, iris scanning. These technologies are becoming increasingly sophisticated, making it much harder for criminals to impersonate someone else.
So instead of relying on things like social security numbers, which can be stolen or fabricated. We're moving towards using unique biological markers to verify our identities.
That's the idea. It's much harder to fake a fingerprint or an iris than it is to steal a social security number.
Makes sense. What about blockchain? I hear that word thrown around a lot, but I'm not sure I fully understand how it works, let alone how it could help with identity theft.
So blockchain is essentially a decentralized, tamper-proof ledger. Instead of having our sensitive personal information stored in centralized databases that are vulnerable to hacking, we could store it on a blockchain where it's encrypted and distributed across multiple computers.
So it's like having a million copies of your information,
Yeah.
all constantly cross-checked and verified.
That's a good way to think about it. It would be incredibly difficult for a criminal to hack into a blockchain and alter information, because they'd have to hack into millions of computers simultaneously.
So blockchain could be a game changer for identity protection. It's like a digital fortress for our data.
It has that potential.
Yeah.
It's still early days. But a lot of companies and organizations are exploring how blockchain can be used to create a more secure and transparent system for managing identities.
Well, that's definitely a reason to be optimistic. It sounds like we're entering a new era of identity protection, where technology is empowering us to take control of our data and make it much harder for criminals to exploit us.
I agree. We have a long way to go, but I'm hopeful that these technological advancements, combined with increased awareness and proactive steps from individuals, will make a significant dent in the synthetic ID theft problem.
That's a great takeaway. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this talk of scammers and data breaches. But it's important to remember that we're not powerless. We can take steps to protect ourselves, and we can support the development and adoption of new technologies that are making the digital world a safer place.
And remember, there are resources available to help you along the way. The Federal Trade Commission's website, identitytheft.gov, is a great place to start for information and guidance on protecting yourself from all types of identity theft.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the nitty-gritty details of how synthetic ID theft works to the larger societal implications and the exciting possibilities of new technologies. But the key takeaway is this: knowledge is power. The more we understand about this evolving threat, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves and navigate the digital world safely. So stay informed, stay vigilant, and as always, stay curious.